Welcome back to Speaking with Confidence, the podcast that helps you build the soft skills that lead to real results. Communication, storytelling, public speaking, and showing up with confidence in every conversation that counts. I'm Tim Newman, a recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on a journey to becoming a powerful communicator. Today's guest is Rebecca Williams. Rebecca is a public speaking, storytelling, and presentation expert who helps mission-driven organizations and purpose-driven overachievers change the world through effective communication. She has served as a public speaking coach at the Stanford Graduate School of Business and has trained professionals and teams at organizations worldwide, including Google, Meta, and Netflix. Rebecca is passionate about empowering dynamic professional women to develop bold and confident self-expression so they can step into authentic feminine leadership. Rebecca, welcome to the show. I'm really excited about our conversation today.
Hi, Tim. Thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Oh, this is going to be fun. And let's just go ahead and set the stage, right from the get-go. And I'm not using stage as a pun. You have that background in theater and all those things. I didn't do that on purpose, but that's it. You were born in Wisconsin, but you spent a good portion of your life abroad in many different countries, which I think is awesome, and I think it's great. And I don't think we as Americans do enough of that. What we can gain from that is a different conversation for a different day. But how has that shaped and challenged you in terms of being a communicator and how you coach different people?
Yeah, this is such an interesting question. I was actually just writing about this morning. So, yeah, speaking to what you said, I was born in Wisconsin, but my family and I we moved to Germany when I was, I think, around 1 year old. And my dad was an opera director. So we would move around quite a bit. So spent time in Germany. And then when I became an adult, I lived in Japan for 4 years, Australia for 2 years. I've lived in Nepal, Spain. I now live in Portugal. And I spent a lot of time in Mexico as well. And so I've had a lot of different experiences and a lot of different cultures and with a lot of different languages and meeting a lot of different kinds of people. And really, these experiences have influenced my coaching and my communication training career in, I would say, two main ways. One is that they help me stay humble in the trade of helping other people communicate. Right. So, of course, English these days is the lingua franca. It's what business is done in. It used to be French, now it's right. English. And I think many people forget that, and especially Americans forget that there are a lot of other languages spoken around the world, and a lot of people, billions and billions of people are speaking 2 languages, 3 languages, sometimes 4 languages, because they need to participate in the world and in the economy. So I think it's dangerous to think that everybody is on the same playing field as a native speaker. And having had this experience of living abroad and working abroad has really kept me humble, and which has also put me in a really deep place of service to my customers, my clients, because I understand. Like, I've had to, I learned Japanese when I was in Japan. I gave speeches in Japanese when I was in Japan. That was really hard. And so those experiences remind me that, hey, what my clients are doing when they're not speaking their native language is even harder. And so it helps me be more empathetic, and it helps me give them strategies to navigate the difficulties of not only speaking with confidence, but like just language and how to express yourself so your audience will get it. So that's the one thing. And then the second thing, really, I believe is it's helped me have a broader understanding of how to communicate with people. So not just empathy for other people communicating, but how to address an audience. So for example, I'm teaching a workshop in London in July, and I'm thinking a lot about my way of being as an American, and how is what I'm saying going to land with native English
Right.
speakers, but still native English speakers who are not Americans. And
Right.
it's really important. It is also a kind of empathy, but it's just an awareness that's important to have when you're addressing any audience.
Yeah, that's such a good point. The whole idea of, again, just say, like say you're going to London, speaking in English to a group of people that speak English. It's obviously it's different, but the culture is different, and understanding that really and I guess I look at it as even though you have such a wide breadth of international experience, you're still a guest in that country, and it's important to make sure that we do our best to show that we're a guest and try to assimilate and use their terms, use their language, use their mannerisms, so that they feel that we actually care about who they are and their culture to begin with. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. And I love what you say about, like, it's almost metaphorical, right? You're a
Right.
guest in their country.
Right.
And when you think about, if you're speaking from a stage, if you're giving a presentation, sure, you are the star. I'm doing air quotes for people who can't see me. You're the star of your presentation or of your talk or whatever, but you're a guest in the country that is the audience, right? So you
Right.
have to know your audience. You have to know what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, because if you break certain rules, it's going to be tough for your credibility on that stage.
Yes.
And I'm not saying, like, for example, I'm not going to go to London and try to speak in a British accent. That would be absurd.
Right.
And my British accent is terrible, by the way. But I do know some phrases that I wouldn't say there that I might say in the States, for example.
Right.
So it's just having that awareness and being able to work with that in your repertoire of how you communicate.
Yeah, and I think about it again. The cultures are very similar. United Kingdom and United States, obviously different, but a lot of similarities. But let's just say you go to the Far East. You've been to Japan. I've been to Thailand. I've been to Malaysia, and the cultures there and mannerisms and language there, and things are so different. And it doesn't take much, from that perspective to get off track and inadvertently offend people with terms or even mannerisms. So such as first thing I did when I went to Thailand the very first time is I stuck my hand out to shake hands, and no, we don't, we're not doing that. And so it's those other things that you have to actually learn that help you become good communicators. Because if they trust you, then you're going to have a much better time having good open dialogue where you guys understand each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember being in Japan, and I wanted to do an English language teacher training outside of Japan for a month. It was like this intensive training because that's what I was doing there. I was teaching English as a second language, and I wanted to do it better. And I also wanted my Board of Education to not only let me take the holiday, but I also wanted them to pay for the training, because it was job training essentially. And I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And so I talked to my supervisor, and this was all in Japanese. So I really had to practice and prepare for this conversation. And she wasn't saying no. She wasn't saying no to my request. And so I kept kind of drilling in until I could get her to a yes. And she eventually, I understand now that she capitulated, because I wasn't getting the signals that her response was actually a no, because they don't actually say no in Japan. Like you almost never hear that word. And so you just have to pick up on the cues, like, oh, I get it. Like their body language is this way and they're not saying yes.
Right.
But yeah, she told me much later, like many years later, after we got to know each other better, she was like, wow, you were like a freight train. Like I couldn't say no to you. Like it was impossible. So I ended up getting that training paid for and it was great. But more than anything, it was just such a lesson in cross-cultural communication.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good story and a good point. You know that hope people understand. It's you have to be able to pick up on those things, but again, you have to know and learn some things going into it. And some of those it's almost impossible to learn until you get there and you're immersed in it. You know.
Yeah, and that's the fun part, right?
Yes,
because
exactly.
learning as you go. That's I believe the best way to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, what's your biggest public speaking fail?
Oh man, that's easy. I tell this story all the time. So it was probably, I think at this point, like 10 years ago now, I was in San Francisco and it was International Women's Day. And I had been asked to do a talk downtown on a stage in front of this audience of women. And I was really excited because I'm really passionate about working with women and I love presenting. I love being on stage. And, it comes from my days of being on stage when my dad was an opera director, which is another story. But I was excited. So I really prepared for this talk. I wrote my talk and I memorized it and, rehearsed it many, many times. And I even bought a new jacket, this like, I don't know if you know the designer Helmut Lang, but like really cool, big shoulder pads. Like it was a statement, And so the day came and I got on the stage and I launched into my talk and I was really confident for the first two lines and like really nailed it. And then the third line, I just froze and I just blanked out. And I just looked into the audience because there were about like 50 women in the audience, like staring at me. And it was very quiet because I wasn't saying anything and they were waiting for me to say something. And so I just decided to start over. I started over. Again, first two lines were fine. Third line, totally missed it. And, like it was getting really challenging because I was really embarrassed,
Right,
and I
right.
I was making up stories about, oh my God, they think I'm a loser. They think I'm a failure. Why am I even on this stage? And in my mind, I was like, should I just get off the stage now? Should I just leave? But then I started over once again and I got through the third line and I made it to the end and, they gave me a round of applause and I just kind of like snuck away and I left the building because I was too embarrassed to chat with anyone after that. But I mean, the biggest lesson from that experience was that, and it's something that I've had to learn over and over again, because again, I have this performance background. I was on stages and like my dad taught me how to make the audience laugh and essentially manipulate the audience. And so I have this performer gene in me now, but when you're doing a talk, it's not a performance, right? It's just like a different function. And so I got up there with the intention of performing, but then I realized in the moment, like, oh, it's actually not a performance. Like I'm here to have a conversation with them. And so that really shaped the way that I teach public speaking now, because when you have an idea in yourself that it's going to be a performance, that causes so much anxiety, because who's a performer? Like very few people in the world are performers.
Right. That's such a good story and a good lesson to learn. What about the voice in your head? The I'm a loser. What all these people are thinking? I'm horrible. How did you deal with that in the moment? It's one thing, but in the aftermath, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, and it's really a great question, because I am really intent on helping people who engage in public
Mm-hmm.
speaking, helping them understand that that conversation inside your head, it's a conversation that all of us have. I mean,
Yes.
I work with CEOs, I work with people who are like very you know, well respected and revered even in their industries, and they also struggle with that voice. And it's a unique thing that public speaking kind of instigates this conversation, this internal conversation of you know, like bad vibes, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when are the other times
Exactly.
that we're having these negative conversations with ourselves, like, oh, you suck, you should just get off the stage right now. um and I think what it is it's really the ego is trying to keep us small, it's trying to protect us, and you know, say like, oh, maybe you should just not do this. And um but yeah, to answer your question, I mean, in the moment for that story, I just really focus my attention on, like, I'm committed to getting through this no
Right.
matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was an option to just walk off the stage, but it wasn't an option for
That's
me.
right. Well, isn't that always an option? That's always an option.
It's always an option.
But
It's
it's never.
always an option.
It's all. But to me, it's always the last resort, worst option. I think in any sense, you're much better getting through it, because, at least in my view, every person in that audience, they're cheering you on. They want you to succeed. They want you to do well.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, when we hear the negative statements in our mind,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, sometimes it's like, oh, they think I am whatever, insert negative word,
Mm-hmm.
right? They think I'm a whatever. They're not thinking that, you know. They
Right.
are looking at you. Number one, what they are thinking is, wow, I'm glad that's not me up there.
Uh-huh.
That's what they're thinking. And they're also thinking like, oh, I really want her to get through this. You know, like, they are cheering you on
Mm-hmm.
because they know it's hard to do. So that's really number one. And sure, yes, you always have the option to walk off the stage, but I think, you know, like, this goes into a conversation of self-leadership, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
Is that really an
An option.
option if you're leading yourself to grow? No,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yes.
not.
It's not. Right.
One option is to admit, like, hey, I'm really struggling up here, I'm so nervous. And then probably what's going to happen is the audience is going to give you a round of applause because they want you to do well. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can start again. You might struggle a little, but you'll get through it, and then it's a triumph, right?
Right.
So it's all in, like, going through that moment of challenge, and finding that wherewithal inside yourself to get past it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as far as like, how do you, even before the moment, how do you tame those voices in your head? It's positive affirmations. I mean, I think maybe a lot of your listeners will have a personal habit of writing positive affirmations. I
Mm-hmm.
know I do. I write them every morning, and I focus my attention on the good stuff. And okay, here's what I'm doing great, and you know, here's the value I'm bringing to the world. And um, you know, the human mind is really good at telling negative stories and finding problems, and it's up to us to train it to see the good, including in ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
we can do that especially around the skills of public speaking and how we show up in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that, because our brain, it's it's designed to protect us. And there's negative thoughts, and that's what it thinks that it's doing. But it's, from a realistic perspective, it's not. And we have to have those positive statements, or those positive ideas, uh, at the forefront, so that we can actually do the things that we know that we can do, that we know that we can be good at, and work on things that we need to get better at.
Hmm. Definitely.
You know,
Yeah.
when you wrote a book, presenting, which I thought was awesome. I love the layout. I love the concept of the
Here, I'll
interview.
show it. I'll show it as part of the
That's awesome. Yes.
presenting. I know some people reached out to me and they were like, "Hey, do you know that you have the word presenting twice?"
What? Huh? Oh, got it.
I was like, "Yeah, that's the whole point."
Exactly.
Anyway,
But I love the book for any number of different reasons. There were a couple pieces that really stood out. I'd like to kind of go through with you. I'm a systems person, and anytime that we can have a system or an acronym that is simple and easy to remember that you can put into practice immediately, I think it's really beneficial to people because it's something that's memorable, and it doesn't take a lot of time and effort to be good at those things, and especially when it comes to communication and public speaking. Those types of things are so important because a lot of times that we're communicating, it's impromptu, it's off the cuff. We have to develop our thoughts and ideas almost in real time. But you came up with a couple of them. The first one is the first 5 formula, which again I thought was great, and this is really kind of geared to the whole idea of public speaking, presenting, whether it's on a stage, in a meeting, what have you. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that is and how we go about doing that?
yeah. So the first 5 formula it's essentially your presentation first impression. So and I say presentation in a lot of different contexts. It could
Right.
be like you're giving a presentation at work or you're doing a TED talk. It doesn't matter. But you're presenting ideas to an audience. And what I've found working with people is that that first bit of time when you're standing in front of people and you're launching into what you're going to say is often the hardest part to do. It's the hardest part to craft, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
because there are a lot of different ways that you can approach a talk. And that's great. And I'm not for rigidity in a system. Like if you're going to do a presentation, you have to use this
Right.
formula. No, I'm not about that. But what I found working with people over and over again is that they struggle so much, like getting into it, and
Mm-hmm.
and that it prevents them from doing the iterative process that they need
Right.
to do to get their ideas solid. So what I created, and it's been over many, many years now. I've been developing that same first 5 formula for over 10 years at this point. And I've tested it with a lot of different people, with leaders of companies to individual contributors to just, individuals doing talks for fun. And I found that it's really bomb proof because this formula, it sets up the rest of your talk
Mm-hmm.
by connecting with the audience, hooking them with something interesting that they can lean into. They're automatically engaged, presenting a clear point right at the beginning, introducing a problem, which then makes the audience lean in, because when there's a problem, that's when we lean in, becomes
Right.
interesting. Like that's storytelling. And then 5 is introducing this agenda. Like, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about, which is basically it's Aristotle, right? Tell them
Right.
what you're going to tell them, and
them.
tell them what you told them.
Right.
So it's 5 parts, and it's meant to be done in the first 5 minutes of your talk. And so the 5 parts are connect, hook, point, problem, agenda. So connect by asking a question, hook by telling a story, point, state your point in a sentence or less, very concise. Problem, introduce a problem that the
Right.
content of your presentation will answer or solve. And then finally, the agenda is, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about. So these 5 things in the first 5 minutes, they do a lot of things. They connect you to your audience.
Mm-hmm.
They engage them. It makes it really clear what you're going to talk about, and it generates some interest because you've introduced a problem into the mix, and then it prepares them for what they're going to hear. So I I teach this to all my clients and to all the companies I work with because I've never seen it not work,
Right.
honestly, like for so many different examples that I can share more about the examples if you like, but it just, I like to say like it's a slide into your content. Like your
Okay.
content's this big pool of stuff. So
Right.
how are you going to get into the pool? Well, you could throw people in, but that doesn't feel really good. A slide is kind of fun, and
Hmm.
it allows them to go in gradually and have
Right.
an experience along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, you bring up really good points. And if you could give an example of one that worked, I think that would be great. The whole idea that you've got to connect and hook almost immediately, or you lose them. I mean, that's so important. But if you could give an example, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So, of course, I use this formula with
Hmm.
all of my trainings and teachings and webinars. And so let's see. I'll see if I can remember one that I did. So it's going to be a little bit meta because I'm talking about presenting and public speaking
Right.
skills. So,
Hmm.
so imagine the curtain opens, the metaphorical curtain opens, the camera turns on, and I lead with a question, right? So again, it's 5 points: connect, hook, point, problem, agenda. So connect. What's your biggest struggle when it comes to giving presentations? Okay. And then I either have them answer in the chat, or I, you know, get a few people to answer in the audience, or maybe it's rhetorical. You don't need them
Hmm.
to answer, but
Right.
just cueing that it's a conversation. It's not just a monologue.
Yes.
So what's your biggest struggle when it comes to giving presentations? And then hook, you tell them a story. So I often tell this story that I already told about that day, the International Women's
Hmm.
Day in San Francisco. Point. What was my point? It was something like, um, great leaders are great presenters, something like that, like a very simple point. But problem, many people have forgotten, or I think it was great leaders are great storytellers,
Yes. Okay.
but many people have forgotten how to tell stories. And then the last point is agenda. So today I'm going to talk about basic story structure, how to tie up your story with a resolution, and how to include storytelling in every talk you give. Let's get started. Right. So I don't know. Is that clear? I'll let
Yeah.
you respond to that.
So that to me that's really clear, and I'm really glad that that's the example that you gave, because one of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with is how to tell a story, or where do we get stories from, or how do we start the story, or I don't have this great big grand story. So
Right.
what are some um, ideas or techniques that we can use to help people become, better better storytellers?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I could talk about this for days for sure, but why don't I focus on two things right away? So, number one, there's this phrase that I always use, and it is specific is terrific.
Oh
So,
yeah.
a storyteller is effective when they can really like make us feel like we're there,
Yes.
right? And the way we help our audience feel like they're there is by giving the details. And sure, we have to strike a balance of how many details do I share, because you could drown people in details and then it's not interesting anymore. But you do want to pepper your story with details. So, for example, the International Women's Day talk or story that I told you, how many people did I say were in the audience, Tim? Let me give you a little quiz right now. See what you remember.
About 50.
Okay, great. And what color was the jacket I was wearing?
Oh my gosh. I know it had big shoulder pads. It was designed.
Okay,
I
it
would say
had big
blue.
shoulder pads.
Yeah.
It was black with
Oh, it was
big
black.
shoulder
Okay.
pads. Yeah, so you remember that detail,
Mhm.
right? And how many times did it take me until I finally got through the talk?
3.
3. Yeah. So all of that, like you
Mhm.
could answer those questions because I gave you details
Right.
there,
Mhm.
which is what makes a story memorable. Like I didn't ask you to remember those things, but
Right.
you remembered them
Mhm.
because they're specific. So that's the first key point: is specific is terrific and vague is forgotten. If
Wow.
you're vague in your storytelling, if you say, for example, last week I went abroad and did a talk, like, well, where'd you go? What
Right.
did you talk about? Right? Like, give us something, give us something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's first, is specific is terrific. And the second thing I'll say is that stories, I mean, our whole life is a story, right?
Yes.
It's one long story, which is made up of a lot of little stories. And then stories within those stories. Like, for me, where I am right now, it's 2:45 in the afternoon. I've already had a million stories today.
Yeah.
Like when my locker at the gym wouldn't open, and when I got an unexpected email from the company I'm working with. Like, those are all little stories. So we have to know what is the story we're telling, and we have to tell only that story, because the danger, and I've seen it happen over and over again, is that people, they don't know when to stop, and they hook in all these other storylines, and it becomes really
Yes.
muddy
Mm-hmm.
and messy. So it's really about clarity and being ruthless in your editing and forcing yourself to be succinct in your storytelling.
And that's what I guess that's what helps you also be specific too. If you're not letting these tentacles go out with all these other different things, you really have that opportunity and the ability to drill down and be specific in some of these points.
Yeah, because if you're telling a story that's as big as Canada,
Right,
then you're not going to have time to add specifics, because then it would be far too long, right?
right.
So go narrow and deep.
I want to go back to something that you said a little earlier. You said you like to make people laugh.
Uh-huh.
Are you funny?
I think I'm funny. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I'm funny.
And that's there's a reason why I asked that question, because there's a lot of people who don't think that they're funny, but they come off as funny. I mean, they make people laugh for whatever reason. It could be mannerisms. It could be the way they said something. It really could be anything. How do we infuse humor into our communication styles, into our presentations, into our really our basic interpersonal communication? Because I think you nailed it with humor is so important in how we communicate and how we get our message across.
Yeah, well, I think what I'll say here is that, there's a continuum of what funny is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's me, and then there's Robin Williams over here. Like it's totally a different league. But that's not to say that well, where am I going with it? I really believe that everyone has the ability to have some humor, and it doesn't mean that they have to, again, perform like Robin Williams, but I think so much of it is just being comfortable with yourself and having a laugh at yourself, and not taking yourself so seriously, because I think a lot of my humor is it's like I'm making fun of myself a lot,
right.
And having the confidence to make fun of yourself, I think, is a great window, and it gives other people permission to not take themselves so seriously too.
Yes.
It brings a lightness, it's a shift in tone it's really valuable when you are interpersonally connecting, right?
Yes.
If you are steely faced and super serious, and you're not allowing other people to be their quirky selves, then it's like going to a wake, nobody's going to have a good time. So I think it's super important to, number one, not take yourself so seriously, even if you don't consider yourself traditionally funny. Bring some lightness into what you're doing by having a laugh, by I think curiosity is one of the best ways to not take yourself seriously, is get curious about what other people are thinking and saying, either in the meeting, in your audience. Get curious, to not take your ideas as paramount. I think that's really important too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really glad you said that. And again, there's a difference between being funny and being a comedian, right? And I like that you said it's not a performance. I'm also someone who uses self-deprecating humor, and I agree with you. I think it's so important that people can see you making fun of yourself or making jokes about yourself, because it does open. Number one, I think it gives you more credibility. It also opens them up to relax a little bit and to let their guard down a little bit. And I think once that happens, the communication process becomes so much easier. You're not fighting the walls or the barriers, and you can truly get down to whatever it is that needs to be done. I just think that I just think that it's so important.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk on education? Yeah.
That to me is one of the best ones ever. And I actually use that, and I've got a standard presentation. That's kind of I use that as a model, and I talk about that all the time. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so he leads with the question, and his question that he leads with is hilarious. He walks out on stage, like TED Talk, in front of all these hundreds of people, and his question is, "How you doing?" He just asks the whole audience, "How you doing?" Mm-hmm. So again, that's the first part of the first 5 formulas. Connect. Like, first connect. Ask a question. Like, get into it with people. And he is such a master at self-deprecating humor. I mean, wow, yes. How hilarious is he? But the thing is, when people laugh, they're laughing because they're feeling something. Mm-hmm. And when people feel things, they remember those things. And so humor is a huge part of it. It should be. I believe it's a huge part of education. And I also believe that public speaking it's a sort of education, a kind of education. So, yeah.
I think we can go down some serious rabbit holes with that, and I'm glad you brought that up because I 100% agree with you with everything you just said, and I think if we, from an education perspective, if we took a step back and made some adjustments, we wouldn't need our jobs would be very different. Let's just put it that way. Mm-hmm. The how we coach people would be very, very different, and I just think that. From an educational system perspective, we've really missed the mark.
Yeah, and I think it's worthwhile bringing up AI in the context of education as well as public speaking right now, because obviously we have this new technology and it's shaking up industries, it's changing the world, and I think a lot of people they're scared of, like, oh, is AI going to take my job? And, how am I going to navigate this new landscape? And what I am 100% convinced of is that AI is going to force us to be better storytellers. And it's going to force us to be better connectors, because, it's one thing to have information and share information with people. AI is great at that. But AI does not have lived experience. Sure, it can make up a story, but that's very different from hearing a human being's experience on the planet and how it changed them and what they learned. So we owe it to ourselves and to all of you listening. I challenge you to tell more stories and become more proficient at storytelling, and use that to wield influence in your personal and professional lives, because I really think that that's going to be the thing that sets you apart as a professional, as more and more as AI comes into our world.
Yeah. Again, I love that you said that. I agree. I look at it along the same lines in that, I don't care what business or industry you're in, everything is still always going to come down to personal relationships and connections. And if we can't build personal relationships, we can't tell those stories. If we can't communicate with individuals, we're not going to make it. So it can be AI. I mean, you can have it, but you're still going to have to interact with people. You're still going to have to
For
have
sure.
relationships. You're still going to have to build those relationships and cultivate them and connect with people. And that's where, again, storytelling really comes into play.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, I use AI every day. I have
Right.
2 AI platforms that I use literally every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's my assistant. Um, but there are a lot of things I don't use it for. Like
Right.
I don't use it to help me with storytelling.
Right.
Maybe if I write a story
Mm-hmm.
and then I need some help editing, I'm like, how can I make this more concise?
Right.
Or how can I make this clear? But I'm very, very careful because it works so fast, it can lose a lot of the nuance and the humanity of a
Yes.
thing, or the turn of phrase. And we owe it to ourselves to pay attention to all that stuff, because AI is not perfect.
Right.
And we have skills that we still need to be developing. We can't just hand it all over, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I put something. It was like a 1-page narrative into ChatGPT, and I obviously didn't give it a really good prompt. And that's the other piece to it. And when it spit it back out, I read it and I said, you changed the entire meaning of it. You changed the entire meaning of it. It doesn't sound like me anymore. And I was like, well, I just wasted all the time. I wasted 2.5 minutes of doing it. But
and you got frustrated, so that's part of your time. Yeah.
But again, part of it is the prompt. I probably needed to give it a better prompt, but I didn't. So I scrapped that instead of going forward, and I gave it to my wife to look at and edit and say, look, this is what I'm thinking. Is it getting that point across? Does it make that point? Does it sound like me? From really from that perspective, because not getting too deep, but my writing process is a little bit different. But I go from being very structured and professional, and then I create it to make it sound like I'm actually talking, as opposed to a written document. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, one of my favorite prompts is, don't rewrite this. Let's have a conversation about it. Okay. And that's helpful because it's really, then it becomes your thought partner instead of your writer. Like I don't really believe that AI does a great job at writing quite yet.
Right.
Yeah. So, but being a thought partner is helpful.
I like that. I really do. I saw there's a YouTube video about it's writing the best prompt ever to write a prompt. And
wow.
And it was like a page and a half of prompt telling it how it wants the other prompt to be. So I'm like, that's getting a little bit too much for me. If I'm doing all of that, I'll just go ahead and write it myself. But anyway, but you're right. I think AI can really help. And if we're not using AI, I think we're doing it wrong, because you better learn how to use it. There's a lot of benefits to it, and I do think that I think the people that are afraid that they're going to take their job or whatever reason, I think if they were to just maybe learn a little bit about what it's doing and where it's going, they'll understand that yes, it may take over some tasks, but it's not going to take over everything that it's portrayed that it's going to take over, because again, it's still going to be that there's interpersonal relationships.
Yeah, well, I really subscribe to what Scott Galloway says about AI, in that you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to someone who understands and knows how to use AI.
Right.
Which is 100% true. And, if you are one of those people who hasn't engaged with AI yet, and either you're skeptical or fearful or you're just not interested, I would just encourage you to get on the free version of ChatGPT and ask it to help you plan a trip to Spain or wherever you want to go. Like,
Right.
just start using it in your day-to-day life. So, number one, so you're more efficient, because it will help you be more efficient
Mhm.
with a ton of different tasks. Like, what did I ask it to do the other day? I think I asked it to, I was starting this new, like testing out this new eating regimen. And I said, okay, I, I can only eat this stuff. Can you come up with a shopping list for me
Mm.
so that when I go to the grocery store, I know what to buy? And it just went, brrrr, and I was like, okay, great. And then out the door I went. I didn't have to think about it. It was just,
That's
it's my
awesome.
assistant. Yeah. And I think when you start using it in low stakes scenarios like that, you really start to understand how it can be helpful to you in your life, because that's what technology is for.
Exactly.
Like we use technology all the time. Like, this pen is technology. How would
Right.
your life be different if you didn't have a pen? Like,
Exactly.
technology evolves us. It sparks our evolution. So ignoring a tool, a new technology, it's not a great idea, because it's happening anyway.
Right.
It's kind of like saying, oh, I understand that the car exists as a technology, but I'm not going to participate in that.
Yeah, I'm out on automobiles. I'm out.
Right. I'm just going to bike everywhere. And hey, that's fine. Like, that's a choice too. You're going to have great legs and a great butt.
Right.
But, like, let's be real. Like, this is the way the world is going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Again, I love the AI conversation. Wasn't planning on going there, but it's so important, and it's so important from the communication perspective that we talk about this, and that people understand AI's role and how we can use it to help become better communicators. With there, there's so many things out there, and I talk especially with people that are applying for jobs and young professionals going out to get the first job. There are programs and AI models out there where you can feed it the prompt, and it will give you a practice interview and can grade you on those things. So, there's ways that we can use AI to actually help us become better communicators as well. So don't be so standoffish on it. Embrace it, because, like you said, it's here. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And I have a platform that I use with my clients all the time. Excuse me. It's called Yoodli, YOODLI .ai. And it's an AI speech coach. And there's a free version, which is really great. And I encourage you to check it out, where you can do interview role plays and it can give you speech feedback and stuff like that. But then I have a version that I use with my clients, and I've trained it on my content. So, for example, it knows the first 5 formula, and it knows all these different frameworks that I teach. And yeah, it's a great way, because look, like, working with a coach one-on-one, it can be expensive, and not everybody has those resources. So using AI to improve your communication skills, like you said, it's totally on the table, and it's really useful. It's really useful. And, I share all the time that it's, studies show, like, over and over again, that communication skills are really the number one skill you need to advance in your career. If you want to be in a leadership role, if you want to get promoted, if you want to raise, you need communication skills to not just prove yourself worthy, but you need communication skills to ask for the raise, or ask for the promotion, or
lead people.
Exactly. So yeah, I can't stress it enough how important it is to practice these skills.
Well, you're using the AI for lots of good things. I'm using it to develop pictures of me going surfing. That's how
cool.
That's how I spent a couple hours over the weekend.
How are you doing that? Like, what's that?
Oh, so, and I can't remember the actual website, but it's so basically what you do is you get high quality pictures of yourself, your face, your body, and you need about 30 of them, and you put them into this AI system. And I can't remember. I'll text it to you, and I'll actually put it in the show notes for everybody too. But and it runs whatever it does, and then you can use that model and you can give it prompts. So I said, have me, and I gave my age, height, weight, surfing in Hawaii, wearing a blue shirt and swim trunks or whatever, and it comes back. And now some of them are very good, but some of them are really pretty good.
Wow. Okay. So it's an image generator that you've
Yes.
trained on your own images.
Yes. Yeah. And it's
okay.
And the reason why I started doing it is because I making thumbnails for YouTube. Because I have some images that I use, and that's great, but I want to start being a little bit more creative with it, and you can do all kinds of stuff. So I did one. My youngest daughter got married a couple of years ago, and when I sent them to my family, I said, "Look, do you guys do you all remember when we did this?" And they're like, "When did we do that? I don't remember that at all."
So you tricked them?
I did. And then
my God.
I sent them, I did one, my daughter, youngest daughter got married a couple of years ago. And I said, Beth, you don't remember me giving this speech at your wedding?
And she thought to herself, oh, wow, was I that drunk already?
Yes, exactly. Here's the thing, though. And if you have anybody else in the picture, though, so like in the wedding ones that I did, it confuses it. So it puts you in the other people's positions. So I was in that picture like 3 other times with your other people. So it had to picture me standing up with a microphone speaking, but people in the background were actually me. So
that's creepy.
It is.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, please share that with me. I'm going to spend hours on that, I'm sure.
Yeah. And it's cheap too. So you pay by picture. It's like 3 cents a picture.
Oh, wow, that's great. So super accessible.
Yeah, so nice. we went down that rabbit hole. That is what it is. Let's get back to talking about your book. I think that's
sure.
Anyway, again, I told you I really like the layout and the interview format. It's really, really unique. How did that come about? And can you give us a little bit more detail on the book and where they can get it and those types of things?
Yeah. So the book, the format, as you said, it came about because, so for those of you who haven't seen it, which is probably most of you, the book is done in an interview format. So my friend, Jeff Goldsmith, he used to work at Wired magazine years ago, and he was a writer, but also an interviewer. So he would go interview famous people. Like he interviewed Cheech and Chong, he interviewed Allen Ginsberg, and then he would turn those interviews into content for the magazine. And so I've known Jeff for years from San Francisco, and he reached out to me one day and he said, hey, I have this idea. He's like, what if I interview you about what you do and we'll turn it into a book? And I thought, oh, that's great, because number one, I love writing, number one, but number two, I have to say, like, it's pretty selfish. I was getting tired of saying the same things all the time. Like I just wanted to codify everything so I could say, oh, go read chapter 2, so there was a little self purpose in there. But so we set out on this project, and what we did is we did about 2 years. It took 2 years, and we probably met every other month or something like that. And we met over Zoom, and he would interview me, and he had access to a lot of my documents that I use in my work, in my business, training people and communication skills. And so he would look at those and then ask me questions based on what he was finding there to try to unpack what I do and my methodology. And so what became of that was just a very interesting conversation between two friends about public speaking. And after those interviews were all done, we took it and we had all the interviews transcribed, and then I took it and I entered into the editing process, which, the editing process can be quite hard because you're trying to tell a story with a lot of content that's seemingly on the same level, right? So you're trying to figure out what's the beginning, what's the middle, what's the end. And so it was a super joyful process because I I think one of the reasons why I love teaching and coaching communication skills and especially storytelling is because I love structure and I love things to be in place so that they have a function and so they're meaningful. And so taking all of that information and then putting it into a structure that has meaning for people was really a joyful process for me. And yeah, and that's what came out of it is this book. And yeah, you read it, Tim.
I did. And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it because again, it flowed really nice. There were a lot of stories in there, which again made it a real easy read. It was something that I could relate to. A lot of really good points, and I would suggest people just pick it up and read it because it's easy to read. It's not a hard book to understand. There's a lot of really good information there that you can use. Again, like right away, you read it. Oh, that's a good idea. You can start using it right away. It's not something that you have to work on or plan for weeks or months at a time. You read it and you can start using it right away and start becoming better today and not have to wait.
Yeah, yeah. I take pride in being a practical teacher. So it's very practical, lots of super clear tips and strategies for how to be a better public speaker, how to be a better storyteller. And yeah, I guarantee that you will learn something and that
Yeah.
you'll remember a lot. And there's a lot in here too about mindset and about some of the things we talked about, like don't take yourself so seriously and have fun with it. And we're all making these mistakes, and it's not it's not priming you to give a TED talk per se, but it's encouraging you to raise your voice and
Right.
take the microphone and engage in that, because it really does matter to share what's on the inside of you with other people. So yeah, you can pick it up on Amazon, and yeah, I encourage you to grab it. It's a great
Yeah,
resource.
absolutely. And where else can people find you to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Real Rebecca Williams. And you can also find me on LinkedIn at Rebecca Williams Works. And those are the main places. I also have a YouTube channel. I think it's at Rebecca-Williams or something like that. But I encourage you, just reach out to me on LinkedIn and Instagram and say that you heard me on Tim's show. That'd be great. I'd love to connect with people
That's awesome.
and
I
chat.
appreciate it. I'll put all those links in the show notes for everybody so that they have it. And Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me today and spend some time with us. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Great conversation. Thank you.
All right, take care. Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, The Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Forum for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change the world. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.